Welcome to the 10th season of the Author's Corner. Each show is jam-packed with interviews, reviews, and so much more for you, the author and the artist. And now, here's our host, author H.D. Campbell.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Author's Corner, Science Fiction Edition. As always, I'm your host, H.D. Campbell. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I got a big show for you guys today. But before we get into our show, I want to make a couple of announcements. Today, a lot of states are moving into reopening. I still want you guys to be careful because I want you safe, because I want you back watching the Author's Corner, as well as back just being safe with your families. So as states open up, I'm still telling everybody to be, filled with caution. I'm doing a sci-fi edition for the next 2 weeks to spotlight different authors of different genres. This will not be the only special show I'll do. I'll also be doing shows specializing in Christian romance, shows specializing in mystery, shows specializing in different types of genres that we as African Americans can get into, just giving us a variety and spotlighting many other different authors. So stay tuned for more special shows. I started to do sci-fi first because I'm just a huge sci-fi comic book fan anyway. In fact, one of my favorite sci-fi authors of all time is actually the black pioneer of science fiction, and her name is Octavia Butler. She's written a lot of books, The Kindred, Dawn, Wild Seed. In fact, Dawn and Wild Seed are now about to be turned into movies, so stay tuned for that. She is the pioneer of black science fiction. No one has been published doing black science fiction before her. She's won numerous awards, and I personally felt she's very underrated in the industry because it also shows that we as African American authors can write a variety of different things, which is also why I'm doing various different shows in the coming months, giving specials, spotlighting those different type of authors. So, without further ado, I have two great authors today. The first one is the author of the MPire series, which is basically the Four Horsemen turned into a drama / sci-fi masterpiece. Her name is T.L. James. We had a talk about life, the Four Horsemen, the biblical implications, and a lot more. Then we'll have author Shawn James, who has two amazing graphic novels about the Isis series, which, he wanted to create black superheroes, but he wanted to do it on his terms. Because later in the show, I'll kind of explain about Marvel and DC and how corporate America wants you to do things their way. I'll discuss some of that in my 2 Cents series. After this first break, we'll start with the MPire author, T.L. James.
Coming soon, the second printing of the Sergeant Wiseguy Chronicles, reintroducing you to a special agent, Sergeant Wiseguy, the government's top strategist and agent with a very sarcastic tongue. A former ranger, he heads up a team of specialists taking care of missions too big or too messy or other agents don't want to handle. His first mission takes him to Paris, where a stolen Cold War nuclear warhead was discovered. While discovering the warhead's origin, a lost dead love resurfaces. Can Sergeant Wiseguy resolve both before the secret plans for the warhead is complete? Well, check out the second printing of the Sergeant Wiseguy Chronicles, coming soon. Just who is author H.D. Campbell? He's the multi-gene author who can take you on several trips at once. With H.D. Campbell, you can have a romance, you can track a killer, or even stop an international incident. For 30 years and still writing, H.D. Campbell will take you on trips you've never been before. Learn more about him by logging on to hdcampbell3.com or check him out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. Read his rewrites of How to Lose a Black Woman and Late Murder at 10, with a new title coming soon. And as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the show. T.L. James, after so many, we've been trying to hook up so many times for interviews for years, but our lives just kept getting busy. Her with the MPire series, me trying to get my books out. We finally managed to meet, and when we did talk, we had an excellent conversation. We talked about the Four Horsemen. We talked about life. We talked about what it takes to get your books out. We talked about a lot of different things. We just had a great conversation. So I want to share this conversation with you.
So I kind of always wrote in high school. I went to a predominantly poor high school, and in my neighborhood, it was like a lot of, gangs and things that are happening. And one of the things I found out is that, number one, the library always has air conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah, and then people don't get that. It's like, go to the library, they have air conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to read, and my favorite thing that I love to read was like mythology. That's like my ultimate favorite. And I had some other books that I love to read. But as long as, and back in the day, your parents told you, you either stay in or you stay out.
That's it.
So you were kind of like out for most of the day, so I stayed in the library for the most part. I would have my little snack lunch, and you could hide in one of those little nooks and just read and read and read. And so I think that's how I bypassed most of the games and all of the other stuff that happened in the neighborhood. But I always wanted to write. What got me into writing was in 2003, and that's like my little pivotal point. I graduated with my MBA, I had a baby, and I got laid off. Like all in that order. And one of the things that I was so used to was research. Because, when you're in grad school, that's all you're doing is research.
Right.
But once you have a piece of paper, it's like it kind of stopped. And I went to a private Christian university. And so, if anybody know about Christian universities, if your last class is like a capstone or an elective or anything, they'll let you walk the stage and then you have like so much time in which you need to finish that class. But if it's Old Testament and New Testament, they would not let you walk the stage. And so you had to be sure that you took Old Testament and New Testament. And one of the things that kind of stuck to me was Revelations. And that's going to be important later about Revelation. So with that, being laid off, degree, and having a baby, if anybody know about having babies, they eat every 2 hours. Or maybe 1 hour. Mine was 1 hour. Don't get any sleep. And so I watched all 952 episodes of Law and Order. I have a Law and Order law degree.
Wow.
I know how to process a crime scene on paper. So I have my CSI degree from both Miami and Vegas.
Wow.
Got all my little degrees. But I got tired of watching television because what I noticed is, for me, we didn't have any positive black people on this side either. Not enough of them. Either being good villains. They always have something, but they weren't the smart ones. They were always either the muscle or something else. They weren't really the super smart ones.
Right.
This is before power. So I created my own little world. At the time, I was also single, and so I was trying to create this perfect man. And I put him on paper all of these skills and abilities and things I wanted him to do. I wanted him to have a yacht. I wanted him to ride horses. I wanted him to know all these languages and, just had this long list of things that I wanted this perfect man to be. And so one day of clarity, because somebody actually came over and kept my child for like 24 hours so I could sleep, I woke up and I was like, okay, number one, I don't like water. So even if you had it hot, I'm not getting on it. The only horses that I like is the little polo man.
Right. You crazy.
And the conversations in another language unless we're speaking in sarcasm.
Right.
I'm like, this man, I'm not going to ever meet this guy. And something said, well, you can meet him in words. I said, okay, then I'll write about it. And so I wrote about him, I wrote about his family, and the pedigree of the family is, it's an African-American family with deep roots, even back beyond, slavery.
Mm-hmm.
They live in Austin, Texas, because I love Austin, although I live in Houston. And they are a powerful family. They're all college educated. That's just one of those things that they have. They love their families. When they're married, they stay married.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this love life. They love their children, all of these things. So kind of build the purpose of that part of it. And like I said, the lineage goes back to, way back beyond slavery. And so I was watching one of my favorite shows is Charmed. Yes. And we talking about Prue original, because one of the things I fell in love with was that was the first time I saw a BMW X5.
Yes.
When Prue had it, and I knew that was my car.
Mm-hmm.
Love the car. So I was creating the whole backstory of this family, and they were strong, powerful, and just together. And so watched an episode of Charmed, and one of the episodes was they had to work together through the four horsemen of the apocalypse to kind of get each other's person back, because Prue got lost, and then I think Death got lost, and so they had to work together to kind of bring them back into the fold.
I remember that episode, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's big, and that's when my story changed. And I said, okay, so I'm going to make them the four horsemen, and so I'm writing little bits about that. So in 2004, I started working for an oil and gas company. And I'm oil and gas by heart, love it. And so I'm sitting back because I'm in writing mode. Most of the drama that was happening at work, I was reacting to it differently. Because I'm like, I can write this down. I can do this, and that. And so then the pivotal change happened again. Yes, they are the four horsemen of the apocalypse. They're running it like a corporation. And so the horses that they're riding on are your Lincolns, your Lexuses, they got horsepower, not horses. They're well put together, they're clean, you always see them in fours. When things are popping up, it's like there's a backstory to it. So then I went back into my research mode, and I started to find things that happened, real world things that happened, but made it a spin that it was a family issue. And so, for example, Black Friday happened October 1980. And that's when the death market, quote unquote, died on that Monday. What happened was one of the generations, Death, was actually working in a financial institution. And his family business gave him like a paper bill that you need to come back to work. And if you don't come back to work, you're not. Okay. And so that's the day he stepped away from the financial institution. Thus, the stock market died that day. And so we're talking about Black Monday. So that's when the stock market died, is when he walked away from the stock market to join the family business. And I went through a lot of historical things and different reasons why, like the alternate reason why real things happened in the world. And when I did that and I put the backstory behind that, then my character started to change. Because they're like, yes, on the outside, I do love my wife and I do love my kids, but that's not who I am. And so this character popped up, and then one character said, yeah, so, I really don't want to get married, but they don't push it really far. And then you always have family drama. So, you have a family drama which one brother thinks the other brother is more powerful and going back and forth.
Right.
And all of this chaos, which when I'm saying all of this chaos, the characters start speaking to me and defining who they wanted to be on paper. And it's one of those, they want to do something, and it's like, no, that's not how the storyline is in my book. And they just kind of stop talking to you.
See, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that's exactly how I write. If you can plan a book for days, but that character tells you no, and you continue on that path, you're not going to do well. You better do what that character tells you to do.
I've had that happen to me with 6 characters, and one character, I was like, you know what? And I was speaking to the computer, I'm like, you know what? I can just kill you all. Do you want to be dead, or do you not want to be dead? I'm going to give you 3 days to figure that out. I'm going to work
See? Right.
You never realize who I am. You're talking to a fictional character that does not exist, but it's like that's what a writing block is.
Mm-hmm.
When you have something for the story, and especially if the story is so rich, and they want to go another way. Eventually, Alistair came. He died. I killed him, but he came another way, and that's just kind of how it unfolded. And 1 book became 3 books, became 7 books. And it's 1 book I'm trying to finish now to kind of tell everybody what happened to the main character. They're like, I've killed him all 3 times, he's gonna die. But I can't write it now. So just because everything that's going on is like freaking me out, so I can't write it now. But I'll be writing in the end, and everybody knows, what happened to the main character. But
Right.
everything that's going on with the quarantine and everything else, it's kind of a little creepy and hitting close to home.
I truly understand. How are you doing with the quarantine, by the way?
I am doing great. So currently now, I'm doing 2 things. I'm supply chain by heart with oil and gas, and so I'm always working with contracts and vendors and suppliers and doing those things. And I got this wonderful opportunity to be an instructional designer, which I'll explain that later. And so I have like these 2 jobs, and they work perfectly because I'm stuck at home. So my 16 hours float in and out, and this and that. So I've been doing good. I have a wonderful 16-year-old who's getting me out of house and home.
I know that feeling. I have 2.
Yeah. And he kicked me out of his office because when they have their classroom Zoom meetings, literally sounds like a classroom.
Wow.
And I'm the one who has a job that has to be online to talk to people, to make money during school. And so we're battling that, but that's it. I probably go out of the house, out of the whole 7 days, about 3 hours a week. It's 3 hours. I can just tell in my brain, out of that whole 7 days, I only want to be out of the house for 3 hours. And so I don't know what's going to happen when we have to return, because, I don't know.
Well, when we turn to normal, will we ever be normal, honestly? The bus shelters, altars, we don't even know what normal is.
We don't. And one of the things I tell people, I was like, I always love to work from home because I did it before. But it's one of those verbal things when they tell you have to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I want to work. But, it's kind of like I have everything that I need here. Why not work from home? But it's just that thought that somebody's telling you to work from home.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fine as long as nobody's telling you to do it.
Yeah, I'm telling you to work from home. I'm doing myself anyway.
Right.
I like people, but now you're telling me I can't be around them.
So, tell me about your very first book that you published. What was the road to that?
Each generation, there's always 4 boys, and I'll show you one of them. So, I'm missing the first one, so sorry. But each generation, there are 4 boys that kind of bubble up, and all of their names begin with M. So the family knows And but they're on the fourth one. So you have pestilence, famine, death, and war.
Ooh, okay. The apocalypse.
Yeah,
Four horsemen.
that's who they are.
Okay.
Famine. And it's each generation that happens. And so one of the things that I talked about when I was creating a backstory is, in slavery, how did there were so few of us and we didn't know this land, how did we get so far to have freedom? And I know when you're looking at Hollywood, they want to say, you good non-black people don't. It's like, yeah, that's great, But what if there was a family that kind of could filter in because they had those powers that they kind of helped brought about, that change of getting out of slavery.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And so my boys, although they're the four horsemen, what they're trying to do is they're supposed to keep the balance between the battles with the angels and the humans, and kind of keep it together until, truly this apocalypse happens.
Right.
They're supposed to keep the balance. And if you can remind me why I'm saying I'm freaking out about this quarantine, I can tell you the storyline that's happening in my brain about this. So they're trying to keep the balance because the angels are coming down here doing things. Us humans, you can tell as humans, we do stuff to get in trouble.
Right.
And so they're trying to keep this balance. On top of, they're still a human family and they still have family issues. So they're trying to keep this balance while trying to balance themselves. But you can see how that's not going to work.
No.
But with that being said, the first book, In Search of the Lost, the previous generation or the current generation at the time, there was a lot of abuse that was in the family, and the 6-year-old was sent away, or actually kidnapped, sent away. And so, In Search of the Lost is when he comes back into the family. Now, he was sent away when he was 6. So, although he has memories of things that happened, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know that he's dead. He doesn't understand why things work into his favor. He doesn't understand that when he gets super, super angry, he can just kind of up and die. he doesn't get it. But he's really smart, he's really intelligent, and when they found him, he was actually going to Oxford over in London, which I had a wonderful opportunity to go see that place.
Oh, nice.
I was a little disappointed because I was looking for these old castles and all of this stuff. And it looked like a regular university.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
So it's not like you envisioned it or seen on television. It's really quite different.
It's just a regular university. They got their little buildings and little really? I can go and take a picture of Lone Star and say this is Oxford.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
My heart was hurt.
I know it was.
But, they have to change and expand and all of that stuff. So he's coming back to this family. Number one, with his identity, he thinks he's just a financial guru, which he's really smart. And he does have his own financial company. But his clients are like the Rockefellers, the Chase, and the Morgans, and all of those people. So his clientele are not people that we see every day.
Okay.
Okay, so he wouldn't manage Bill Gates, but he would manage Bill Gates' people.
The people of the people.
That's his echelon. So
right.
It's a very quiet, boutique thing, but he's higher echelon. He doesn't and he thinks he's just gifted, God's gift, right? And also in his mind, he thinks he's the only child. And if you ever saw a family where you have only children, and then, like, for example, my son on my side, he's the only child. But when he goes to his dad, he's one of 4. And so how he has to finagle and maneuver and kind of find his place in fitting is a little different.
I got you.
And so he has a hard time kind of assimilating to the family. Number one, he's a ladies' man. So in the family, you're supposed to stay a virgin until you get married, and when you get married, that's the end of it. You cannot divorce your wife because the man automatically gets executed, the woman loses her lineage and everything else that she has.
Oh.
So even if y'all don't like each other for a while, it's like we gonna work it out because I want to live and you want to live. He's a ladies' man, and it's like I'm not trying to get married. I'll get married when I'm about 84 years old when I need a nurse.
Then I get ready.
Like,
You're right.
We're Texans, and so this is based in Texas. Texas had their own little, craziness. But he came from London, so he's actually saying, no, I'm not American. Yes, I am black, but I'm not your kind of black. And so he's having a whole bunch of different issues that are going on. On top of the fact that the oldest, which is the leader, and he's the baby, they're kind of having this fight. So he's conforming. And the first part of the book is actually figuring out how hard it is for him to kind of get to the family, how to stake his claim of who he is. Because he's deaf, and deaf is the one that has the physical power. Everybody else has heightened intelligence to make things happen, but he actually has the physical power because he's the one who can call souls and send them to heaven and hell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's the strongest one, but the other brothers don't want to say, well, you're the strongest one because, they got to knock him down a bit to make him feel like that. But he's dealing with that. That's the first book. The second book, which is The Family Secrets, this one reveals why he was sent away. And then you start to, so when you look at the first book, you see this perfect family, and you're window shopping, and you're like, oh my God, if I see this man at Kroger's or something, I'm going to step up to him and tell him I want him, and he's amazing, and he has these beautiful cars, and when his family steps out, they're gorgeous. And so window dressing and shopping is just really, really great. You ever get inside the door, then you start to see the chaos. Craziness. And so then you find out that his brother, his dad, which is the reason why he was sent away, is also deaf. But he is, and I haven't figured out which one, so I just call him both. But he's a manic bipolar, narcissistic, social psychopath.
Okay.
He does it smooth. He's a smooth person. He's not going to yell at you, but you can tell just by how the room changes in temperature when he's angry. He's always angry. And so in Secrets Revealed, you kind of figure out why he was sent away with the abuse from his father, the fights between the two brothers, because his father and his uncle are twins, and so that little dynamic fight that they had. The family has gotten such in a disarray that they're kind of behind the times, and so Mallory's kind of tasked to kind of bring them forward. If you know anything about change and technology and everything else, how that's a fight. Mallory finally gets married to this little girl. He doesn't like the little girl, and he's still sleeping with other people. Yeah, and he has a plethora. And outside the wife, all of the other women know how to interact because in his brain, if I'm with you, I am with you. So,
Sound like his attitude.
the woman who I'm with, you cannot come to me, you cannot step to me, you cannot do anything. You know your place. When I'm with her, I'm with her. Okay? But I'm probably going to be with her for about 24 hours, and then I'm going to be with you.
Oh, wow.
You can't be with me and talk because I'm with her now.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, these women are well kept, and they're not little bitty women. So one of the women he is with, she has a restaurant franchise. Another one, she is a Texas District Court judge. But we're not dealing with little bitty women. These are like
Big, powerful women.
women that he's dealing with. And so, and he kind of manipulates and uses them for things that are happening, and but it's a trade-off. And so that's with Secrets Revealed. Okay. One of the big things in Secrets revealed. That's when I talk about things that are happening, real world stuff, and how it affected the family. You know, because how the family affected that real world thing. And then my next book I have are The Family Hustle.
Mm-hmm. I actually love that title, by the way.
Yes, The Family Hustle. And so basically, he's finally settling into what he wants to do and where he wants to be. And okay, all four of us are trucking along. But the previous generation has to bow down to the future generation. So like passing that baton. And if they don't necessarily bow down to that generation, the future generation has to challenge. And it's a challenge to the death. And everybody else in the past generation is bowing down except for Death, which is his dad. So essentially, he's trying to come to grips with, okay, I just found this man. We're trying to build a relationship. I'm trying to understand what happened, but I still want to forgive him. And so now you tell me I got to kill him because he's too stubborn to step out. And all this is just happening in Austin, Texas. And in the meantime, things are happening. So one of the bad things that happen is Death and War, they're brothers. And they have a relationship that when they're in close and they're in sync, they're together, they're like this. But when they fight, they're like this. And so they're having this perpetual fight. And he's not collecting the souls like he's supposed to. So people are living longer, which people are living longer, right? And people are happy and calm, and humans are starting to do stuff they're not supposed to be doing because he's not level setting, and war is not doing this, and this is not doing that. That it comes to a head. And one of the things that come to a head is another view of what I talked about in September 11th. Why that blew up and why that happened. And it's because War was fighting with Death and he didn't manage that terrorist watch. And Death was fighting with War and he wasn't collecting the souls that he was supposed to. And so the situation just went topsy-turvy. We had a terrorist attack, all these people died, he had to collect the souls. And so that was like one of those things where it's like, oh, you know, it was a terrorist attack, but could have been something a little bit higher or more whatever.
Right.
We'll introduce heaven, because there's an angel, like I said, there's an angel that's coming down here who is looking for that final fourth horseman, because every so often there's a final fourth horseman that is in the Bible.
Right.
He's trying to kill that one off because they don't want everything to reset. Basically, that's what Armageddon is. It's just when you do a 10-second reset on your computer.
Right.
Everything shut down. Nobody wants that 10-second reset because you don't know what resets and what resources you have when everything comes back up.
Exactly. It's so true.
Yeah, you can come back up and everything is great, or you can come back up and you have a blue screen. He comes down, and this is where it starts to get a little hanky because I made him the second coming, but he's actually the second coming that comes down before like Jesus. Because I wasn't gonna mess with Jesus. I'm like, this is a lot of things I can do, but I'm not gonna mess with him. So he got it out there.
Right.
But so it's the second coming, but he's the warrior. And he comes down and he's trying to find Death. And he's trying to kill Death. But then, you know, knowing me, I gotta freak it out. He falls in love with Death. So we have that little thing, and Mallory is having an issue because it's like, this is not who I am. This is not who I am, this is not who I want, but I don't know why I'm attracted to him. And what they're doing is actually confusing hatred for passion.
Right.
Because as long as they're not passionate, they're always fighting with each other. And it's kind of like, why are you even with this person? Because you're always fighting with each other. But the angel doesn't know that he's dead, and he doesn't know that he's an angel. The other thing about Death is he doesn't really believe in God at all. And so this whole exercise because with all of these books, he actually has to acknowledge
Right.
and believe in God. And so that's what that book is about. Speaking of God, God makes a couple of appearances in the book because one of the things that he does is he's asking Mallory to do stuff. You know, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. Mallory's like, number one, I don't believe in you. I don't know why you keep coming into my house. To the one point, God wakes him up and he has a gun and he's like shooting at him. And God is just sitting there like, well, let me know when you're ready. And so God is having this, asking him to do something. And Mallory's like really on this anger streak and he's going, why are you always sending other people to do stuff that you want to do? You don't know how to do your own work. And that's one of those pivotal things. And God is like, you do what I want you to do. And knowing, you and I probably know this, that you make plans, God laugh, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, I wanted you to be here, and you try to go that way, don't worry about it. I'll see you over here when you're ready.
Right.
You're going to be over there anyway.
Because he's not playing with you. You want to go your path, go ahead. I'll see you over anyway.
He got all the time in the world. I'll wait.
Right.
That's one of the things that he does, right? And so everything kind of happens and does, you know, he's going through his thing. And he eventually does what God says. And he sat there and God said, the next time, he said, I send people out to show them how strong they are. And I send people out to show them how strong and resilient, and, you know, it also helps build faith. So when you meet them here, he said, but the last time I did my own real work, Noah built an ark. You're like, okay.
And I remember that, and you know what's funny? Everybody laughed at Noah. Everybody laughed at him. Noah still built the ark.
It didn't matter. And he said, the last time I did my own real work, Noah built an ark.
Yep.
So the next time I ask you to do something, just do what I say. And so God kind of pops in here and there and kind of level set stuff. So that's that book. There's another book where Diary of a Madman. So this is where he eventually, no, this is the one where he actually kills his father. And it's not that he go to kill him, his father goes into attack him because his father knows I can't step down. You know, I'm a narcissistic social psychopath. So I can't step down, he has to take me out. And so he takes him out, but he really goes to like a mental breakdown.
Good.
So this is where he goes completely crazy. And he's off the rails. And he's completely off the rails. And heaven knows who he is now. So heaven is sitting here going, should I kill you? Should I just come down and be with you? And he's messing with me and going crazy and this and that.
Choices.
You can't have a successful triangle unless you have a third party.
Exactly.
So the third party swoops in, and that's when we meet Solace. And Solace Lucifer moved from Salem, Massachusetts. So he has a line, and he has a human line, but then he has, you know, that spiritual line that he has. And so you find out a lot about Solace. Solace been on the world since the beginning of time. He's one of the fallen angels. He has changed his name so much and all of that. Well, he's been down here so long that he really just don't want to do what he wants, what he's supposed to be doing, what he wants to do. Okay. So he's looking for a replacement. And his replacement that he's looking for is that final fourth horseman that's in Revelation. Because all you want to do is party, play golf. People gonna do what they're gonna do anyway. Sometimes these humans be blaming me for stuff that I didn't even come up with.
Right.
That's how he feels.
Oh.
But she's like, I don't even know this woman, and she blaming me because she wants to sleep with that man.
Right.
I told her
X once said that we give the devil too much credit.
Well, and I actually got into a whole argument with someone because how I feel is it is said that God created us in His image, right? So God created Satan, which is Morning Star. That's one of his names that he has. Lucifer, Morning Star. He created him, right? He created through begetting Jesus.
Yes.
And he created humans. So we all see God as Father. Well, why am I going to worship my big brother if he's always getting in trouble? Why don't I just worship the person who created me? And that's a whole fight, because it's like if you're putting all of your emphasis on the devil is a lie, not the day Satan, and that's what you're worshiping.
Right.
And so when that book came out, I had battles. Like, I don't worship him. I don't even see him like that. The devil, if he walked in my house, good. Come on. Cook. Wash some clothes.
Right. I'll put you to work.
What do you do? And then my sister and I, we were talking about something, and she said, yeah, they said, devil get behind me. No. You need to get in front, because I need to see how you going.
Right.
You're moving and shaking.
No, I definitely don't trust you behind me. Yeah, you get in front of me.
No, you stay whole in front of me. I need to keep my good eye on you.
Exactly.
So no, you don't get behind me and whatever weapons that could prosper. I probably created half the weapons in my brain. You know, so I just think a little bit.
Right.
I'm going to the source. Yes, Jesus, and how I see it is Jesus and Satan are like that good brother and that bad brother.
Right.
It's a perfect example of what not to do.
Don't go nowhere, because next week we'll be back to finish that conversation. That conversation got so good. That conversation just ran, but I'm almost certain you don't want to sit down for a whole 2-hour show. I mean, you can, but I don't want. But I want to save the best for last. So stay tuned for the conclusion of my interview with T.L. James next week, because I'm telling you, if you like this conversation, you're gonna love the rest of it better. Next, no relation, we're gonna have Shawn James talking about the Isis Shawn Haynes Series. Stay tuned.
Do you need editing and formatting services, promotion, or do you need a press kit? Let HD Campbell Productions put together a package to suit your needs. Let us handle your promotion, editing, press kits, photography service, and a lot more. We even do custom videos and videography. To learn more, log on to www.hdcampbell3.com or email us at hdcampbell3@msn.com for a free brochure. You can also contact us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. We guarantee professional services at reasonable prices. Check us out, and as always, let your writing fuel your spirit.
Welcome back to the show. My next author is Shawn James. Shawn James has the Isis series and Shawn Haynes series. Basically, he has graphic novels based on black superheroes, which we need a lot more of in today's world. I mean, we have, Black Panther, we have, Static, we have a lot of different ones. We have Cyborg, we have a lot of them. But the thing about it is, he wants to do it on his terms, and he's done it. So we'll find out more about him right now. How many titles do you exactly have?
I think it's about 72, 73 at this point. That's about it. About 72, 73 right now, and I'm getting ready to put out up to next year will be like 75 or so.
Wow. And how long have you been writing?
I have been writing ever since I was 9 years old, but I started writing professionally when I was in my 20s. So I've been writing for a good 25 years right about now.
How old were you when you first started writing?
I started writing when I was 9 years old. My brother had all these comics in his comic collection, and I wanted to make comic books. Unfortunately, I couldn't draw very well, so I came up with the idea that I could make words into the pictures, and that's how I started writing.
Okay. Well, see, and what put you on the road to publishing your first book?
It was something I always wanted to do ever since I was 9 years old. I've always wanted to publish a book, and I tried to go through the traditional trade publishing route. Unfortunately, I couldn't go through that route. I had to wind up going through the print on demand route, but then I saw that I was having limitations with print on demand companies, and I liked working with Virtual Bookworm. They did a great job on my first two books, but when I saw what I needed to do, I wanted to have more control over my format and creative process. So I started my own imprint, SJS Direct, out in 2009. So that's when I started publishing my own stuff.
Awesome, awesome. Now, my biggest thing is because see, there's a transition between writing for others and starting your own imprint. So that means you're in control of everything.
Yes, I practically control the overall publishing process, but I do hire independent artists to design my covers, like this cover for Isis, the main event. I usually hire out to artists named Bill Walko, who does the Isis and East series covers, and I often hire Mike Williams to do covers for the John Haynes series. So I oftentimes hire artists to do covers for me, and that's usually what it is. I do the writing, I usually do the editing, the page layouts, and I'll do the cover concept design, and then I'll send that out to an artist, and then after that I put together the entire finished book, and I usually order one of these so that I can look it over, and after I look it over I then get it ready for release. I also do the marketing and promotion, so I do a lot of different jobs.
Awesome, awesome. Now, to be into that, before I get into your Isis the John Haynes series, I want to get into it in detail. What was your very first book?
Well, my very first book, you mean the one that I wrote or the one that I published?
One that you published.
Well, the very first book I published it's inside of this. It was the first Isis I published back in 2002. I only had like $600 left off an AmeriCorps job that I had worked, and I wanted to get a book published before I turned 30 years old. So I took 200 of the $600 I had, gave it to Virtual Bookworm, and they put together the first Isis for me. So that was the first book I ever published.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now I want to get into your Isis and your John Haynes character. First, the Isis series. Tell me a little bit about that. What was the concept and what inspired you to start the series?
Well, the Isis character came out of a conversation my family was having at the dinner table around 1998 or 1999. We were sitting there talking about comic books and superheroes, and my sister said to me, they don't make many black female superheroes. So that was one of the things that inspired me. And then one night I had a dream about a goddess named Isis, and I put those two together and I said, here's a way I can make a black female superhero. And I wanted to make something that was positive for young black girls. I wanted to make a positive black heroine for young black girls. And that came out of me trying to make this story about this daughter of Osiris who was Nubian, and she was from Nubia. And then she came to America. She was an immortal, so she came to America. And I wanted to use that as a way to teach not only about Egyptian mythology and Nubian mythology, because Nubia is Egypt's sister nation, but also to teach about African American history and also give black girls that positive heroine while being able to talk about the mythology, the history, and also, talking about how to be a great hero. And then that's what I did in 2002, but then I later elaborated on it and came up with this whole concept of the goddess next door, because I had written a blog talking about my proposed ideas for a run of Wonder Woman comics. And I said to myself, why should I give DC Comics my best ideas, or why should I write some fan fiction that has no value when I have created my own character and I can tell my own stories, and I would own all the rights to those stories, and I'd be able to make money on those stories, and I'd be able to create that positive heroine I talked about almost about 15 years ago. So in 2012, the 10th anniversary of the Isis series, the Isis book, this book came out in 2002, but in 2012, I did a update on the Isis character after I published John Haynes, and I wanted to show what she was doing at the time with Amari's Revenge. It's in a box somewhere, but I did that in 2012, and that's how I started the Isis series. I originally planned to do it in 2003, but I could never find that job that would enable me to pay for publishing other books. But in 2012, I was ready to start the Isis series, and that's when I've been doing it ever since.
Has it been well received by us, especially African American females?
Well, what I wanted to do was create a character that showed the positive traits of Black girls and Black women, because I didn't believe that the mainstream media was giving us a positive picture of Black girls and Black women. And we oftentimes marginalize, the images of Black beauty, Black empowerment, and things like that. We really don't really showcase those things. So with the Isis character, I wanted to go out here and create that positive Black heroine. And I wanted to showcase what was beautiful about Black girls, and what made them goddesses was their internal things as related to their character. That's one of the things I like to focus on when I'm doing the Isis character, is what makes her a hero is who she is on the inside, and the things that she does to help other people, because she usually dedicates herself to service and serving others. And that's what that's what the goddess next door is all about. She's a girl next door, which is something we don't see in Black culture anymore. I mean, we used to see it in the 80s and in the 90s with the sitcoms like The Cosby Show with Denise Huxtable, Vanessa Huxtable, Laura Winslow from Family Matters. We don't see girls next door anymore. So I wanted to create this whole concept of a girl next door who goes out and helps like she's needed, something similar to what they do with DC's Supergirl or Wonder Girls. So I wanted to give that type of heroine for little Black girls to have, so that people can see the Black girl next door helping out and being a hero. So that's what I wanted to do with the Isis character, was give Black girls that kind of heroine, so that they could see they're girls next door and they serve their community and they want to help out too. I wanted to really give Black girls that positive image, because I saw what was coming down the pipe with Monstrous Ball in 2001. And I said, I have to really start focusing on developing this, because we really need counter programming to stuff like Monstrous Ball and all the stuff we've seen that go on over the last couple of years. I mean, the Black woman's image has practically been run down the sewer, and we need counter programming. And it's always been Black men who have gone out here to elevate the Black woman's image and give her a positive picture. So it's important for us to have characters like Isis and Eastine, her sister, who has her own series as well, so that Black girls can see a positive picture of what a Black girl looks like and how Black girls live and serve in the community.
Right. So, like I said, kudos to you. Now, how many Isis books do you have?
I have about 15 or 16. I would have to. I mean, it's a lot of Isis series books. The first Isis book is Amari's Revenge, and I wrote this one to reintroduce the Isis character to readers, and it's the story where Isis deals with a evil queen of Nubia. So that's the first Isis series book, and it reintroduces the character, reestablishes her into what I call the SJS Direct universe. Because the SJS Direct universe started with the temptation of John Haynes, and after this story, I wanted to see where Isis was, so I created Isis Amari's Revenge to be the first book. So this is the first book, and then we have the ultimate fight, where she takes on the Greek goddess Nemesis. In an ultimate fight, I got inspired by UFC to make this one, and from there I started, and that was the one that started most of the story arcs. So after that, I created the Beauty Myth. This was the new edition of Beauty Myth, which has a cover by Muzi Nkosi from South Africa. He did the cover for this one, and this is one where she takes on this Black cosmetic creator who wants to find out the secret to her immortality. And this one sets up a lot of major storylines in the Isis series. And this one is one of the most essential books, because it talks about Black beauty, Black self-image, and Black self-worth. And it really shows that even though Isis is a goddess, she still struggles with a lot of things Black girls struggle with, as related to those feelings of insecurity and inadequacy regarding her own beauty. And that's something a lot of Black girls deal with, so I wanted to do it in this story. And then we have Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy, which comes out of the Beauty Myth and Amari's Revenge, and deals with Isis's relationship with her sister Eastine and the problems they're having with each other, because they used to be arch enemies, but they started working together. And this is a storyline where a lot of the stories that started in the first 3 books come to a head. And Isis has to finally start realizing she has to start trusting her sister. So this is My Sister, My Friend of Me. This is a fun one. A lot of people like this one. And after that, we have Isis, All About the Goddess, which is a mystery story, which features a guest character, Marilyn Marie, and she's trying to help her stop a campus stalker. This one is very popular with readers. It takes us into the world of college and art modeling and this mystery, and people, they really like this one. And this one was one of the harder ones for me to write because it was a mystery story. And after that, we have the first cover by Bill Walko, which is Isis, Wrath of the Cyber Goddess, which comes out of Isis, the Beauty Myth, is actually the second story that follows behind the Beauty Myth, where Isis takes on the evil cosmetic owner who has turned herself into a digital diva, and this is a big action story. So this is a big major one. And after that book, we have, I believe it was Power of the Princess, which is a follow-up to Ultimate Fight. Yeah, I got to do this cover over, but this is a follow-up where she takes on Nemesis once again, her Greek counterpart. And after that, we have the Night of the Vampires, which is where Isis takes on vampires, and this introduces another major character to the SJS Direct Universe who's going to be featured in a new book coming up called Eternal Night, Lilith Graves. And this is one where Isis teams up with John Haynes to take on vampires.
Oh, crossovers. I love crossovers.
Yeah, this is his story arc actually started in Wrath of the Cyber Goddess. This is the first book where John Haynes appears in the Isis series, and he makes his return after the temptation of John Haynes after a several-year hiatus of me not using that character. He finally makes his comeback in this book. So this is another one people would want to pick up, and it's followed by, again, let me see if I've got it, Power of the Princess, which is a little short reprieve. And then we go into Night of the Vampires, and the most popular book in the it's this one, Samurai Goddess, that comes after that, because I didn't have things ready for that book yet. The Samurai Goddess is where she takes on Kung Fu killers, and this is one where I introduce another storyline that's tied to the whole Cyber Goddess arc and the epilogue, but this one is one where Isis, oh, actually I got it out of order. It's supposed to be the Bride of Dracula. That's the Bride of Dracula. This is the one everybody loves. It's just incredibly popular. People love this story out of all of them. And this is another one where John Haynes and Isis team up, and they're taking on the boss, who is Count Dracula. And this is one that's filled with action. It's a lot of fun. Then after that, again, it's Samurai Goddess. And then we have the House of Isis, where I was making a commentary about pro-blacks and back to Africa types, because a lot of them would attack me about the Isis character's skin tone, and I wanted to show what made her black was inside of her and the content of her character, not the color of her skin in this story, and I wanted to make a commentary about it. And I couldn't get this one out in time because I didn't have enough money to pay Bill to do a cover, so I want to refresh this cover one day, but a lot of people like this one, but I want to do it all over again. But this one is before the next story arc, which I had to do, well, I did, which was the one that was supposed to come out. Well, this one, I had to put this one out earlier, but the one that was supposed to come out, I finally got the money for the cover, and I had Bill to design Escape from Transylvania, which is the third part of the vampire arc, which was Isis, Night of the Vampires, Isis, Bride of Dracula, and Escape from Transylvania. And all three of those make up the vampire arc. And after I did the vampire arc in, I think, 2018, I finally got to do my Fantasy Flashback Fall, which was a crossover between your Isis Imitation of Life, where we went back to the Goddess Next Door's days in Jim Crow and how she helps a girl overcome racism during Jim Crow. And this book was part of what I called a Fantasy Flashback Fall that was supposed to coincide with Easting the Sands of Time. Now, Easting the Sands of Time was supposed to be Easting in ancient Egypt in a time travel story with the teenage John Haynes, whereas Isis was focusing on the Jim Crow period. And this cover was done by Drew Swift, who came in, and when there was some issue, when one of my artists, he had gotten an illness and he couldn't do the work, so I brought Drew Swift in. He's a great black artist out of Texas. And he put a great manga look on my concept, and it really pops. People love it, but people love the story even more because it's really takes us back to Jim Crow and shows us that the heroes back then, they weren't super powered. They were our teachers, our doctors, our lawyers, all of those educated Black professionals who laid the foundation for the civil rights movement to walk on. And that's what I was trying to do with this story, show us how those people were heroes back then fighting Jim Crow with the little things that they did that had a great impact. And after I did the Fantasy Flashback Fall, I went back to doing the Isis series and started with All That Glitters, which was more a homage on superheroes. And it was a basic bank robber story, and I wanted to show how easy it was to do a bank robber story in comics. So I did this one to show how easy it was. And the most recent book is Isis, the Main Event, where the goddess next door steps in the squirreled circle and takes on the beast from the bow. So I'm getting ready to wrap up that second story arc in the Isis series. I'm 15 books in, and I'm about to get ready to wrap up the second story arc. I'm working on Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, which is the third or the fourth book in the Cyber Goddess arc. And after that, I'm pondering doing one more book to complete the arc, which is dealing with the Imitation of Life story and the sorority Isis is in, the Thetas. So we're about 16, 17 books in on the Isis series, and I'm getting ready to probably do some more work to start plans on the third story arc. I read a lot of comics as a kid, and I learned a lot about writing from reading different comics, and I also learned techniques from screenplays and learning how to work different novels. But I've read comics for over 30 years, so I know how to get the story arcs running. I know how to do the character transformation arcs, and I learned how to do that, and that's how I can do these serialized stories one after the other. I aspired to be a comic book writer when I was 16, but I couldn't find the door to the industry. So I decided to take my skills and use them for myself and use them in these novelettes towards giving the reader that same type of story experience.
Awesome. Now I want to go into John Haynes. Who is John Haynes? Tell me more about John Haynes.
Well, the John Haynes character is a character I based partially on myself. And I created the John Haynes character to give Black boys a positive image of a Black man and show them an image of a positive, responsible Black man. And his story is one that parts of it came from the original story, Temptation of John Haynes, came from my mother. My mother told me the devil didn't like me, and I said I was going to give the devil the ultimate middle finger by writing a story about a guy who was tempted by him and given all of this power, but his greatest power is his power over himself and his relationship with the living God. Now, the devil sends this demon Eastine to go out here and try to tempt him and seduce him and compromise him. And this whole story is about his example of Christ and how it transforms the life of Eastine, and it also shows how he can beat the devil in this story. So that's the first story that I wrote when I started getting serious about the character again, because I created the character way back in 1990, and I just couldn't get that character to work. So he sat on a shelf for, a good 15, 16 years, 1990 to 2005, because in 2005, I decided to bring the character back because I had this temptation arc I wanted to do. So I wound up bringing him back in 2005, and I started the Temptation of John Haynes. And that's where I got the whole idea of the John Haynes versus the devil, and this guy being tempted by the devil and being made into this false god who would wind up having all of this power on the outside. And the whole thing is the devil was trying to make him compromise his beliefs and his ideals. But what makes him a hero is that he won't betray the things that he believes in, and that's what leads to the struggle between him and the devil. Now, after I did Temptation of John Haynes, I sat on it for several years because this book didn't come out until 2011. This book didn't come. I tried to submit it to different publishers and literary agents, and they all hated it. And in fact, most of the people, they hated the cover. I'm getting ready to do something with this cover, but they loved the story, and people asked me to bring the character back, but I couldn't bring the character back because I didn't have a story just yet. I mean, I started part of The Man Who Rules the World back in about 2012 or so, but it just didn't come together. I originally was going to use the villain from Man with Nothing to Lose as the villain, but when my mother got sick, I got inspired and I wrote the whole Man Who Rules the World in about a week. And in this story, John Haynes takes on god Cassius, one of these malevolent despots. He's from an ancient African kingdom. The devil brings him back to life and sends him to go try to take over the world, and John has to stop him. And that's where that whole idea of Man Who Rules the World comes from, because Lucifer has it on Time magazine that John Haynes is the man who rules the world. It's a joke to mock him, but it became the title and the statement for the character. And it was about really God ruling the world, but his servants going out here and doing the work to stop the devil's agents like your god Cassius. This is a lot of this one features almost all the characters in the SJS universe. It features Isis, Eastine, and many of the other characters. And this is like a big comic book event type story. So with this one, I wanted to give it big action. It's like if you watch the movies Avengers or Avengers Endgame, that's what this one is a lot like. And people who read it really enjoy it. So I wasn't going to do much with the John Haynes character after this because his stories are very, very hard to write. But Mike Williams, the artist who does my covers, we were sitting there talking on Twitter, and he talked to me, said, we don't have that many positive images of black men out here, especially heterosexual, masculine black men. And I was sitting there talking to him on Twitter, and he was talking to me about John Haynes, and he said, you should do something with John Haynes. And I said, yeah, I should do something with John Haynes. And I decided to, test the waters with the John Haynes character. And that's when I did John Haynes, A Conversation with Death. It takes place right after Man Who Rules the World. And let's see if I can get it on camera. It takes place right after it. And it's the entry point to the John Haynes series. And this book was a blockbuster when it came out. I mean, they loved this book when I put it out. It's only 28 pages. And people were telling me, they were comparing it to John Constantine. They were saying it was like it was like one of the best things they've ever read. I mean, I was getting a lot of real positive feedback on it. And I always believed that if DC Comics were to have picked this up, it probably would have been a huge hit. But people love this book. It got a lot of 5-star reviews. And it's the thing that encouraged me to continue doing the John Haynes series. Usually I just do a teaser book like an Amari's Revenge or a Eastine No Good Deed. And if it gets good feedback, I'll do more. And after I did this one, I got so much good feedback, I got the incentive to pick up on things with John Haynes' Dark Succubus. And John Haynes' Dark Succubus did twice as good as John Haynes' A Conversation with Death as related to the reviews. People really loved this story, and it was a big hit with a lot of readers out there. So that encouraged me to continue going on with the John Haynes series. Dark Succubus, I mean, a lot of positive reviews. People who have read it loved it. And Mike came back and did another amazing job on this cover where John is, tempted by this sultry succubus. And we really get some more insight into the John Haynes character and his dark, mysterious world. Now, after the Dark Succubus, I did John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, which featured the Block, the original villain for Man Who Rules the World. That was the original villain. He comes in the first chapter of Man Who Rules the World. But this story picks up on that first chapter and shows us the Block in jail. And Lucifer comes to him, gives him these powers, and then sends him after John Haynes. And with this one, I wanted to make a commentary on how followers of Christ have nothing to lose, because when they believe in the Most High, they will always gain the victory. So your Block on one side believes he has nothing to lose because he's lost his criminal empire, but the John Haynes character has nothing to lose because he's following the living God. So with this one, I really want to do something special because this one coincided with the 10th anniversary of the SJS Direct imprint, and I decided to hire Josh Howard to do a variant cover. So there's 2 covers for this book, and they're 2 different ISBNs, but they're 2 different versions. There's Josh's version, and there's Mike's version, and you can get both of these on Amazon.com. That's mostly what the John Haynes series is so far. I've got a 4th book I just finished, Taking Care of Business, and that one deals with John working at Morris Phillips, and it deals with my plans for the series for John and his as CEO of Morris Phillips. So I have that one planned, and I have a 5th one planned where Death is going to come back. So I know how to do these story arcs and things because I learned from comic books, and I wanted to make it just like a comic series, so that if you buy the one book, you want to go back and buy the others. That was always part of the sales model. Was once you buy an Isis book or a Shawn Haynes book, you always want to come back and pick up the other back books, and that's yeah. It's just like Marvel Comics and DC Comics out here. I use the same type of story models and platforms, and I do it for many of my other books too. Like I also did it for these 3 books, which are the Spinsterella trilogy, Spellbound, Legendary Mad Matilda, and Spinsterella. So I use that model for many of my books, and I use it for many of them because that's how books are sold. The book in your reader's hand sells the other books, and when they go back for the old other titles.
See, when I set up this interview and I kept trying to set up the interview, I knew I was going to get something, but I didn't know I was going to get this much. And so you got to tell me now, where can we buy your books?
Well, you can get my books on Amazon.com. All of my books are available on my page, and you can get them in paperback and Kindle format.
Awesome. How can we get to know you? Do you have a website, your Facebook page? How can we get to know you?
You can get to know me through my YouTube, which is my Shawn James channel, which I always post videos on. So I have my YouTube channel, and you can.
Do you have any advice for anyone who's trying to get to where you are now, who's having the same difficulty?
Well, I'm still trying to get to that place where I can, be working for someplace. But the whole thing is you have to really persevere. You have to keep pushing. And the whole thing is when I go out here, I didn't write all of these characters overnight. I mean, this is over 20 years of work that you see right here. With all of these books, if I pulled them all up, I mean, just the Isis series alone is over 20 years worth of work. I mean, I've been working on this since 98, 99, and you have to really have a lot of discipline to write these kind of stories. You have to have a lot of resolve, and you have to persevere because everybody's first story is not going to be that great. I mean, the first Isis I wrote in 2002 was not that great, but I still managed to hang in there. You're going to run into a lot of detractors who are going to tell you that your work's not good enough, but you have to believe in your work. You have to believe in what you're writing. You have to believe in it, and you have to commit to it because you're the only person who can get that character out there. And you also have to be able to have a thick skin because you're going to have to deal with a lot of people who, while some people may not like your work, others are going to give you constructive criticism, and you have to be able to take that constructive criticism and find something good in it that you can use for later on, because sometimes people will give you things that will able to help you to write better stories, develop better characters, and you have to be open to taking constructive criticism from people when you're out here, but you have to really hang in there. This is a really hard fought business. I mean, it's not for those who have thin skin. It's not something that you're going to be able to do overnight because it takes me sometimes, some stories will take me a week to write. Some stories will take me a month to write. And some, like Eternal Night, took me a whole year to write. And it's a lot of work. And you have to be prepared to do that work. And you have to be able to persevere. I mean, when creating characters, it's a real process, and you're not going to be able to create a great character overnight. Sometimes you'll create a character like I did with Shawn Haynes in 1990, and he'll be a really awful character in the beginning, but then as you develop him and cultivate him, he becomes a better character, and then to the point where he becomes a very compelling character once you find the right story for him. Because when I was doing Shawn Haynes in 1990, I didn't have the story, but then around 2004, 2005, I started to get the story for the character. And once I got that story, people found the character and they found him relatable to themselves.
Okay. Now, my next question, I have a couple more questions. The next question is, in this African American urban book market and everything, you're creating very positive characters. How are they being received as opposed to other negative characters?
Well, most of the characters that I create are usually received very positively. Now, not there is a segment of the black community that does not really like my kind of work, but usually a good chunk of it really likes my characters, my positive characters. And when people encounter them, they really like the characters. They really like the stories. A lot of people like the John Haynes character. A lot of people like the Isis character. They like the Eastine character. And I usually just go with the audience that wants to buy my products. I mean, I don't try to go to the urban street crowd with my work. So what I do is I go to those customers that I wanted. Now, usually I find that not only do black people buy my work, but I've had people overseas buy my work. I mean, I recently talked to a guy who was in Tahiti who had been a John Haynes fan on my last live stream. And I have a large international audience that in the UK, Germany, France, all over the world that are picking up the books on the regular, Canada. And I go with the audience that wants to buy my work. And I usually, even though I get some resistance from some black people, I just go with those who want to support my work.
Okay. All right. So my final question is, I always give you the final word. Is there
Okay.
anything you want to say? Any shout outs? Anything you want to do? The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk a bit about the 20 SJS Direct 2020 catalog. And the final word is that, you know, I have a lot of great positive fiction that I like to share with people, a lot of great positive African American fantasy fiction. And I want to really open up that black book market so that black children and black young men and women can see positive images of themselves, see images of themselves that inspire them to be their best and do their best. And the only way I can get more of these books out here is if people go out here and support the work that I do on books like John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, which is available on Amazon, and in Isis, The Main Event, and many of the other books I talked about in the Isis series and the John Haynes series. All in order for me to keep producing this work, I really need everybody's support. And every book that you buy and share with other people allows other people to see a positive image of black people in fantasy and see and be able to escape to a world where they get to see other black people and see images of black people, which is very important because as a guy who grew up in the 80s with Cosby and Benson and many of these other positive black people and watching Robert Townsend and Spike Lee, I want to be able to give the next generation those type of heroes that allow them to go out here like Milestone to imagine a world where they can see a black person in that role, and especially in a leadership role, because one of the things that I wanted to do to build on what Cosby, Robert Townsend, and the late great Dwayne McDuffie would do is try to show you black people in power and leadership positions, like Isis being a goddess and John Haynes being a CEO, showing you black people in power, black people in control, and that inspires you to take power and control over your life. So those are things that I wanted to do with these type of books, and I'm hoping to try to share those books with readers so that they can see that positive image and then get inspired to do the same in their own lives.
See, that was an awesome interview. But before I go to break, I want to give a kind of shout out. He's no longer here, to a guy named Dwayne McDuffie, who actually started out like Sean James. Him and some buddies of his created Milestone Comics, which you most know a lot of his heroes like Static and Icon and a few other people who thought they were doing justice by allowing DC to publish their works, but by the time DC bought the rights to it and they went into bankruptcy, come to find out you can't always trust the big corporate giant. Not down in corporate America at any level, but you do have some good, you do have some bad. And even in the writer's market, it even says if you're writing for the big two, you have to be careful. But again, more of that in the 2 cent segment. So when we come back, that's what we're going to have.
By Late Murder at 10 by H.D. Campbell. Former investigative reporter Mark Alexander thought his life hit a slump when a mass shooting results in the murder of a controversial news anchor. Can Mark get out of his head long enough to crack this case? Well, I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to get your own copy of Late Murder at 10 on Amazon.com and coming soon to your favorite bookstore.
My 2 cents is going to be two different types of my 2 cents. I'm actually going to give you two pieces of advice today based on the two different authors I've had. First, I want to talk about T.L. James and just writing sci-fi, period. T.L. James, her book, her MPire series is so successful, not just because she launched her own company to get it marketed, to get it published. She, besides, let's take all the fact that she's just a very awesome businesswoman to begin with. Let's just talk about her subject matter. She took a subject that was very controversial. She took a subject that was very powerful and she turned it into her own story. She says, forget this, my imagination, I'm going to stretch my imagination further. It's called taking a chance. I meet a lot of new writers and a lot of current writers who say, I have this idea, is it too controversial? Is it too nasty? Is it too this? Forget about the two. In fact, take TOO out of your category. Take TOO. In fact, when they say take can't out of your category, take two out of your category as well. Because the problem is, in basic writing, I tell anyone, just write the story. If you just write the story, we can worry about details later. Again, I just told you we're about to publish a wonderful 9-year-old who wrote an entire story through the basis of a school newspaper. I have never seen that concept at all. And she wasn't worried about whether it's too silly or not right or not the norm. Forget about the norm. The norm does not work for you. What works for you is what you know how to do. If you worry about other people, then you're writing for other people. You want to write for yourself, always, first. And again, that's why the MPire series is so popular, because whoever thought about taking the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and turning into a whole family drama? And it is really a family adventure drama. So it's great. Now for part two. Shawn James tried to, at once upon a time, as we all did when we started writing graphic novels, because I actually did at one point, tried to pitch it to one of the big two. But the problem with the big two is, and this has been the problem since the beginning, if they can't get a piece of it, they don't want it. They don't really want you to create anything. They really want you to work on their stuff. That's why a lot of people gravitate towards either independent comic book publishers or they're doing their own graphic novels and comic book publishers. So you must always do for yourself first. So that's why his series, the Isis series and Shawn Haynes series, is so successful. So bottom line with both of them, with both T.L. James and Shawn James, no relation, you must do for yourself first. You can't always wait for approval. You can't always expect someone to just approve your work before you write it. This is your work. Can't nobody tell you what to do. I can't come to your house and tell you how to run your household. So how can I tell you what to write, how to write it, when to write it? And that's it. Stay tuned for next week's Author's Corner for when we have part 2 of our talk with T.L. James, where we're going to talk more about sci-fi, life with sci-fi, more than MPire series, and a lot more. Then we're going to talk to Darreen the Cube Davis, and we're going to talk about The Soldier, as well as the racial implications behind it, and a whole lot of other different things. So stay tuned for next week's sci-fi edition of The Author's Corner. Peace, hair grease, and as always, let your writing fuel your spirit, and God bless. And don't forget, don't ever let no one tell you how to use your creativity. You write for yourself. Goodbye.